The idea of playing Mozart was quite scary, which perversely maybe was like a draw. Actually, it was quite hard to get a very precise picture of him from what I had read. Sometimes it would be like, well, he was a very happy genius, unburdened by his talent. And then elsewhere, you would read about how he was prone to depression and mood swings. Everybody said, I guess, that there was a sense of humour there and a sort of generosity of spirit, which is part of what I think was attractive about the character.
As a character, Mozart was incredibly productive. Music was falling out of him, which is part of Salieri's torment. It comes so easily to him.
But he, has this incredible gift which keeps opening doors for him when his personality keeps shutting doors.
Mozart is a character who's so full of life, so full of exuberance. On some level, there's a madness and an energy to his character.
Mozart to perform badly would do you more harm than not performing at all.
I don't.
You don't what?
Perform badly.
But then the other thing to draw on was the music itself, which I've never had before, where as you're trying to sort of like circle in on who is this person, actually there's this whole wealth of material that is from it within him. That's been a real guiding light, I think, is that I could always go to the music to look for answers. I found that Mozart's music is like, the more that you scrutinize it, the more appreciation you have for it and the more you realize the complexity of what's going on.
When he first sees Constanze, he looks at her and this sort of musical mix comes together.
What?
That's how he understands his love for her, is that she makes sense to him musically.
That was a very interesting thing to direct because the character that we're portraying has music in his mind all the time.
We talked about with Will the idea of the cost of genius and the sort of cost of Mozart's gift that sort of takes everything from him.
The only thing that makes sense to him is the music. And so he doesn't know any other way of communicating.
You're writing it for your wife. You could just talk to her.
This is how I talk.
I'd thought about Will for Amadeus for a while before we started. There's something I think that he brings to his characters, an ability to both sort of perform the fun side of the gift and also the tragedy of it as well. So we weren't sort of beholden to, there has to be an Austrian actor.
Part of me, in spite of myself, when it's sort of like, do you want to play Mozart? Sort of like, but I'm half Japanese. Does that matter? Will the audience mind? One of the actors, I think, came to me halfway through filming was like, are you using your ethnicity in any way, or are you aware of it? Like, what do you think it's doing to the show? And I think I had tried to just sort of forget about it. But actually, I think what does happen is you feel almost like a bigger responsibility to try to get it right, because if it's off in any way or if the audience doesn't connect, you don't want it to feel like, it's because he didn't look right. It's because he doesn't look like Mozart. In some ways, I feel like it gave me some freedom to really interpret the character, and it's not like there's video footage of Mozart to try and do an impression of him. I felt like it gave me a bit of license to be like, well, almost what I'm going to try and do is to sort of embody the music and not be sort of like chained to any sense of like historical, physical, or kind of expressional accuracy. Certainly, in the way Vicky is interpreting the character too, we're not trying to kind of be exactly how he was.
I wanted to go a little bit off the beaten track. What I tried to do was take musicians' references. So I tried to put different musicians in our characters. Amadeus are based on Bob Dylan.
It was great to get Will's feedback and his thoughts about it. And he really wanted to make sure that he looked like a modern kind of interesting, progressive kind of rock and roll style character. The only portrait of Amadeus from that period is of him in the red jacket. So I think it's kind of like an iconic image. And it felt that, it had to be something that we would put into the series, because also it gives the audience that kind of recognition.
So I was frightened of playing Salieri because there have been so many great performances. I just was sort of drawn to the terror of not being good enough. It's just such a great character. I sort of love him.
Salieri had an intention to kill Mozart.
He's a famous and well-respected and well-regarded court composer, but who secretly sees himself, and may well have been, more mediocre, let's say, than Amadeus.
With Paul, it was just a real gift that he, was interested in doing it. He's like this great sort of Shakespearean actor. He has this incredible voice.
Salieri is the everyman of the piece. It's probably quite revealing the amount of Salieri I found in myself. Feelings of inadequacy. I feel for him. I mean, he does some terrible things, but I do feel for him. There aren't many Mozarts in the world. Genius is rare, but there are lots of Salieris. It just has to be more relatable to people than genius.
For me, the Mozart-Salieri relationship is one of my favourite. It's just so brilliant because it's both most obviously a relationship that contains a huge amount of rivalry, jealousy, anger, bitterness from Salieri. He's obviously a villain, but where he's coming from is this incredibly human, frail place that I think we can all, on some level, relate to. What's beautiful is that he has these bitter, ugly feelings, but he also has this deep love for Amadeus's music and ultimately kind of for Amadeus himself.
Salieri views his gift very much as a gift from God. So he absolutely thinks that music is sacred.
Salieri gets convinced that God is speaking through Mozart, and this drives him to an eventual level of craziness.
Hands which glanced over the Baroness's forte piano, as if guided by something greater than himself.
Salieri is this very deeply religious man. He comes up with this scheme of, I'm going to destroy Amadeus, I'm going to kill him. And so for him, that's not just destroying another man, it's destroying God's voice, destroying God himself.
Kill the man. Kill the God.
Salieri is such a fascinating person in literature and in history. So it was really interesting to explore that and to try and find some sympathy in the character as well. He can sometimes seem like this really evil kind of villainous character. It made sense to have him in these cooler, dark tones. So he wears dark blues, dark grey. I wanted to show the kind of refinement and elegance and the richness in his costume. More expensive fabrics, then more elaborate embroidery work and fine detail, but also for him to feel aloof and distant and kind of superior in some ways to Amadeus.
Paul was one of the ones we didn't base on a rock star deliberately because we didn't want him to have any form of cool. We did try and keep more traditional 18th century. And with his makeup, I actually made his character feel quite waxy and quite sinister.
I wanted him to look sort of embalmed somehow and reptilian, and she did such a brilliant job doing that for me. And then once that's done for you, you don't have to worry about acting it. Truth. Perhaps it was in that moment I knew I was going to kill Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
I read the play and I was always intrigued to know what her story was because she's just a very interesting person and she's Mozart's wife. It's like, how is that to live with him?
There's a love story, there's a narrative that goes beyond Amadeus's death, and there's a fantastic tie-in with Salieri. It made great sense to include Constanze as a principal character.
I read this book on her and it was incredible. It talked about her early life growing up with her mum and her dad and her sisters. Then when she met Amadeus and how they developed, and when he passed away, how she kept his music alive.
Constanze is a hugely important part of the story. She is a very important part of Amadeus's life. She sees before anyone else what he can be.
You see what you are, what you could be, but you need to earn that.
She puts a lot of effort into trying to help him achieve what he could be.
Constanze is a very strong woman. She's been a rock for Amadeus, and I think that's what's really lovely and beautiful about it, is that we get to see why they were attracted to each other, why it was her.
He looks like a tomato. How was it? I shit myself.
When we meet Constanze and Amadeus at the beginning of the series, it's this young, innocent love. It's really beautiful. It gets very complicated and it gets very painful for both Amadeus and Constanze, and their relationship is one that I find really touching and heartbreaking, but also beautiful all at once. It's very difficult for her to be married to Mozart.
Gabby had really her own kind of vision. She felt very much that she's this woman who has her own opinions, she has a strong personality, but her life is difficult. She lives with this tortured genius and, she's bringing up children often on her own and quite lonely.
Also, another thing why I was so excited to do the show as well was the costumes, because I've never done it before, and I just think it's a different way of performing.
In the beginning of the series, she's very different. She's lighter and light-hearted, and you'll see lighter colours and flowers. But then she does change, basically, and her wardrobe becomes quite kind of simple, more severe, but still beautiful fabrics. She does look quite serious, but still elegant.
We wanted to create her journey to coincide with Amadeus's. I actually wanted her to feel a little more powerful than pretty. So she felt a little bit more grounded, a bit more earthy, a bit more broken down.
There's a key moment where Salieri looks to not seduce Constanze, but to proposition her. It's a fork in the road for both of them.
Is it so high a price to pay for what I am offering? You do understand what I am offering.
Constanze and Salieri, they are the only people that can understand what it was like to have been burnt by the glare of Mozart's genius.
At the end, despite the pain and complexities and betrayals within their relationship, she is the architect of Amadeus's legacy being sent forward into the future.
Constanze in real life was the guardian of Amadeus's legacy and took on the mantle of making sure his name lasted afterwards.
She's the person who gets to decide how the story is told.
From this time on, we are enemies, you and I.